Hi, I'm Richard Davies, host of the podcast How Do We Fix It?, where we report on the people, projects, and ideas of braver angels. Listen and subscribe to our shows wherever you get your podcasts. So far, we've recorded more than 36 episodes, all about braver angels. Most are less than 30 minutes long. Again, our podcast is How Do We Fix It?, and our website is howdowefixit.me.
Shaka Mitchell is a lawyer, policy guy, and by his own admission, not a crier. Not big on rom-coms, not the guy who fits the stereotype of a typical bridge builder. And yet, he's built something that gets total strangers, including a conservative state Supreme Court justice and a progressive appeals judge who'd never met, to sit down, listen to a song together, and open up in ways that years of reading each other's opinions never could. Today we get into why music does something that politics can't. Welcome back, my friends, to the D-Rate the Hate podcast. I'm your host, Wilk Wilkinson, your blue-collar sage, calming outrage and helping to navigate a world divided by fog and those who would spread that fear, outrage, and grievance. The D-Rate the Hate podcast is proudly produced in collaboration with Braver Angels, America's largest grassroots, cross-partisan organization working towards civic renewal. This podcast amplifies the mission that we share, to foster a more respectful and united America where civic friendship thrives even when we disagree. Each week, through the power of story, conversation, and connection with incredible guests, we work to build bridges instead of barriers. Not to change minds on the issues, but to change how we see one another when we differ. Because, friends, it really is about bettering the world one attitude at a time. We did not create the hate, but together we can derate the hate. So be sure to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts, share it with a friend, and visit braverangels.org to learn how you can get involved in the movement to bridge the partisan divide. Friends, I am so incredibly grateful that you have joined me for another powerful D-Rate the Hate episode. So let's get to it. Shaka Mitchell is a Nashville lawyer who spends his working life deep in education policy. He's a senior fellow at the American Federation for Children and has been in the school choice fight for 2 decades. But that's not why he's here. A few years back, as the world went sideways during COVID and everybody's sense of community started fraying, Shaka started doing something simple. He'd get together with a handful of buddies once a month. Everybody would bring a song tied to a theme, a favorite Springsteen track, a song from senior year, and explain why they picked it. That simple habit turned into the Come Together Music Project, a podcast and a live event series that since brought together friends, strangers, and memorably, 2 judges from opposite ends of the political spectrum who found more common ground in 40 seconds of a Billy Joel song than most people find in an hour of debate. Today, Shaka and I get into why music can crack people open faster than almost anything else, why he thinks it works best when it stays upstream of politics instead of trying to solve it, and what the rest of us can borrow from this approach next time we want to actually get to know someone instead of just labeling them. Let's get into it with my friend, Shaka Mitchell. Here we go. Shaka Mitchell, welcome to the D-Rate the Hate podcast, brother. It's good to see you again.
Hey, thanks, Will. Thanks for having me on. I'm really looking forward to this conversation.
I am absolutely looking forward to this conversation, Shaka. We had a conversation a while back when I found out you joined the Pro-Human Foundation Board of Advisors. I got to know each other a little bit there and have really been enjoying learning a little bit more about you. And now I'm looking forward to bringing a little bit of what you do to the D-Rate the Hate listeners. So So very grateful to have you here, Shaka. We've got a lot of ground to cover in a short amount of time, so I want to get right into it. You are a lawyer by trade, but somebody who has done some incredible bridging work through the medium of music. And I remember when we first had that conversation, you started talking about your come together music. I don't know if we want to call it a program, or I know you've got a podcast surrounded about or surrounding the concept of bringing together people through music. And so first, one of the things that I always love to do, Shaka, is just find out, what brought people, especially people who, kind of are not in or were not naturally in the bridging space by trade, but what brought you into this thing where you wanted to bring people together, become a bridger, so to speak? So how did you get there?
Yeah. Thanks for asking the question, Wilk. And I'm happy to share with the D-Rate audience, and I've enjoyed reading your stuff too over the past few months. So glad to have this conversation. So how did I get into kind of this so-called bridging space? Let me tell you, I am not like a woo-woo. I don't really enjoy rom-coms. I'm not a big crier. Like, that's just not my jam. Yeah. And I think personally, when I think if you had asked me what I thought of the bridging space, I would have associated it with all of those things, a couple of years ago. Right.
Yep.
And I think that's probably a little bit true of you, just, based on what I've read and how I've gotten to know you a little bit.
Yeah.
But I think that regardless of who you are, regardless of whether or not your disposition is maybe more serious or more, affable, or you're more emotionally sensitive or not, I think all of us were made to be in community. And I think that community piece is something that really drove me. And I just saw the community, our sense of community, just eroding really. Like 10 years ago is probably when I started paying attention to it. Sure. But I would say, especially when COVID hit, it was just like all of a sudden the connective tissue just started eroding. And that was I think really something that motivated me to go, okay, what's my place in this? How am I going to deal with it personally? Because I want to make sure that I'm still in relationship with people. And, when COVID hit, we literally weren't even in physical proximity with people. And so I started getting together with some guys. We started listening to music. And at the same time, there's all this political polarization, and kind of merging these two streams ended up becoming the Come Together Music Project.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome. I like the way you phrase it, the connective tissue, and what is the connective tissue when it comes to community and how we can work together. There's a lot of different organizations doing a lot of different things, Shaka, and how we find each other, how we show up for one another can be so different. But ultimately, it is trying to figure out that connective tissue. How do we, as individuals, come together to be part of something bigger than just ourselves? And I think music is an incredible way to do that. You and I were just talking before the conversation about a couple of my Braver Angels colleagues and friends, Ben Karen, John Carroll, with the Braver Music program. And Braver Angels has had a beautiful understanding of how we can use the arts and music to bring people together. And then obviously when I found out about the Come Together Music project that you're doing, that was something I'm like, this is a great thing. The arts have always been something that, whether it be music or whatever kind of art you want to think about, it's a great way for individuals to look at things, find their own place in it, see themselves in it. But tell me how you saw this thing working, Shaka, and how are you using music to bring people together at the Come Together Music Project?
Sure. Yeah. Okay. So as I mentioned, when I first started doing it, it was really just a couple buddies we would get together. These are, guys that I'd known for years. I live in Nashville, so in Music City. So, I like to say that there's sort of always a song in the air, right? We would get together on a monthly basis. Beforehand, we would send around some categories, and everybody would pick a song that matched the category. And we'd get together, we'd listen to the music. Somebody would explain why they picked the song. So the category might be your favorite Springsteen song. That was a category one year. And I really somebody might get mad about this. I'm actually not a huge Springsteen fan. So it forced me to listen to a bunch of Springsteen songs and go, okay, what do I dig? But your favorite Springsteen song, if you could produce a record, what would it sound like? A song that takes you back to senior year of high school, just stuff like that. And what I found out was it was cool to hear music that I didn't know, but what really stuck with me was the stories that these men were telling, right? Somebody would tell a story. You'd say a song about a certain instrument, and all of a sudden a buddy of mine tells a story about his dad because his dad played that instrument, and their relationship has gone through its twists and turns over the years, right? And so that's really the thing that stuck with me, even more than, like, I don't actually remember what the song was, right? But now I know something about this guy. That experience, it's like it unlocked this different level of vulnerability. And I thought, boy, I'm doing this with friends, so maybe it's just that we're friends and we know each other. And I just kind of wondered, like, I wonder if I could do this with strangers.
Sure.
And it turns out the answer is yes, you can totally do this with strangers. And some other friends encouraged me. I was part of this thing through the Aspen Institute. It's called the Civil Society Fellowship. And some of my fellows there said, yeah, you gotta see what you can do with that. Like, run with it. And so I did. I was encouraged to do that and started doing it podcast format. Have now done a bunch of live versions, so with a live audience, and every time, music, it deepens relationships where they already existed. It creates new ones, and it builds bridges across these generational divides, socioeconomic, political. It doesn't matter, because music's been a part of every known civilization. So I just think it's deeply embedded in who we are.
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
We've forgotten what it feels like to have a real conversation. Social media algorithms and comment sections reward outrage over understanding. It's time to escape the feed. The week of August 10th, join all sides for a live conversation about the American dream, how we're thinking about it, and navigating the challenges. With a format designed to foster respectful dialogue, you'll hear perspectives you won't find in your feed. Your insights will be anonymized and included in a report to help leaders better understand how people see this issue. No hot takes, just real ones. Sign up today at allsides.com/derate-hate. It is, and so there's a few things I want to talk about there, and but I'll take the last one first, because when you say that music has been embedded within every civilization for all humankind. One of the things in one of the times I went to college, I never did graduate college, but I've been to college a handful of times. And one of the courses that I took for an elective course in college was it was like music through the ages or whatever. I don't even remember what it was, but it was one of these classes that broke down all the way back to the just after AD and maybe even before then, but the different styles of music and the different kinds of instruments, and it wasn't specific to any one continent, so it was kind of giving you this timeline of things and different kinds of music and what people used and how they used music to communicate and relate to one another, and it was actually that course that gave me an appreciation for like classical music, like Bach and Beethoven and Mozart and stuff like that, which I never had before. But I actually started to listen to it in the context of that they explained it. I say that to say this. is, that is one of those threads, right? Those, I don't know if you want to call it a through line or a way to stitch together people's stories, because music does take people to a different place, Shaka. It brings back memories for people that they might not normally think about. Or,
Yes.
I may have a story related to something based on a song that you never would have guessed. And that's why I love this so much, is because when we think about how people connect, what is that connective tissue? We think about, well, what is it that I need to know about this person, or how can I better understand who this person is and what makes them who they are? I mean, I think anything that we can do to see another person deeply is awesome. But I think the great thing about music is it elicits a different place within that human being that we might not otherwise see in any other way.
For sure.
Dive into that a little bit deeper for me.
Yeah. I think, you're totally hitting on, some of these things that I think makes the experience so special. And so in some ways, it's both special, but it's also universal, because I've seen this now work so many times and have really had the honor and the privilege of seeing this in real time with people. So I think it's doing a couple things. One, just like music's been a part of every civilization, well, so have stories, right? Humans are storytellers.
Yes.
Because we remember the past, we've got the capacity and the imagination to think about the future, right? That really sets us apart. And so what do we do with this? We tell stories. And music allows us to tell stories, and it, like you said, it's really, really sticky. And so what I mean there is that you can do this in one of two ways. I can say, hey, think about your, senior year of high school. Give me a song from that era. And you can do it that way. You can think about a time and then latch the music on. Or, and I bet this has happened to you before, I bet sometimes you're just walking around. Now, at our age, now it's like I'm walking through the grocery store and I hear Nirvana and I go, wait a minute, how is that on like the golden oldies? It's also Nirvana became grocery store music, but that instantly takes me back, right?
Yeah.
To high school, because that was the era. And so it kind of works in both ways. And so music is just super sticky there. And if you ask the right questions, have the right prompts, you can learn so much about someone. And I'll say, I'm also always very surprised. So in some cases, I think I know where something's going to go. But, I'll give you an example. I did a session at Arizona State University, and with two judges. One is an Arizona State Supreme Court justice who's very conservative libertarian. The other was a progressive Court of Appeals judge. He had just been appointed to the bench.
Okay.
They had never met one another. First category was, what's a song that reminds you of where you grew up? All right, that was supposed to be like low stakes entry point kind of song.
Sure.
From the jump, the Supreme Court justice, you could see he got sort of emotional even just hearing the song. So we listened to about 40 seconds of it, and in this case, it was a Billy Joel song called Allentown.
Yeah.
And he didn't grow up in Allentown, the justice, but he grew up in a place that was a lot like that. And he said it just reminds him so much of where he grew up. He starts talking about how he grew up. And this is a man, again, he's a state Supreme Court justice. This is a highly intelligent guy. That's like the peak lawyer, right? That's
Exactly.
what
Yep.
other lawyers aspire to. He is doing all the things. And he grew up from such a like modest background. You would never have known this. Very much working class. And he got emotional kind of talking about it. I have read books by this man, and I did not know that history. All it took was 40 seconds of one song, and boom, we are at a different level. And now like, hey, this guy you can't just typecast him as some conservative judge. No,
Sure.
he's a real human who grew up in a way that might not be too different from how you grew up. And that informs even his jurisprudence. So, music's been a really special thing that way.
Oh my gosh. This is That example right there, Shaka, is one of those things that I try to point out to people all the time that, there used to be a phrase that I think it was fairly popular probably when we were growing up, but you don't hear it as much anymore because everybody, and this is kind of an overgeneralization, but so many people have become so judgmental, but we used to hear all the time, never judge a book by its cover, right? And until you actually dig down deep into something or who somebody is, what made them who they are, don't be so quick to judge them without actually knowing who they are. And this is one of those things that drives me bonkers today, Shaka, is so many people think they know somebody from a couple of tweets that they put out on X or the title that's in their LinkedIn profile or what they put on Substack on a regular basis. But do you really know who they are unless you're actually digging in and asking those follow-up questions? Like I said, without music, in the case of the Come Together Music Project or doing the kind of things that you and I know the importance of, and that's actually digging into who a person is.
Yeah.
I mean, I recently did an episode of The Enemies Project by Larry Rosen. If anybody has not seen The Enemies Project, make sure you go to YouTube, check it out. He has he's this world-class mediator, lifelong bridge builder, somebody, but that's what he does. He brings together people who think that they're, probably enemies or certainly have a very strong disagreement on a particular thing.
Yep.
And he says, okay, we're going to dive in and you guys are really going to learn who each other is. We're going to sit down for a whole day and actually go through all the aspects of, what you find beautiful and what has shaped you and how do you define your values and then how do you prioritize your values. I know that's something that you've also talked a little bit about, but I don't think you can really understand, Shaka, how somebody prioritizes their values until you dig deeply into who they are.
For sure. Well, and it takes time, and I think that's something that I didn't anticipate would be such a benefit of the way that Come Together Music works. I didn't plan for it. It was just kind of happenstance, and then I realized, I think sometimes better to be lucky than good. And in this case, I think we were lucky. But the element is that, when we do one of these sessions, whether it's podcasts, whether it's, in person at a conference, whatever, we are actually, so if you and I did it, we would sit down and we would pick a song, and then guess what we have to do? We actually have to be quiet for, half a minute, 3/4 of a minute, and listen together, listen to the lyrics, feel the vibrations, feel the percussion, and then I've got to stay quiet while you explain why you just picked this song. And I actually think that the listening piece is something that we are so bad at. Again, broad strokes here, but we're just in this instantaneous performance culture. And listen, I realize I'm saying that, and I'm like, we're doing a podcast right now, so we're putting our conversation, we're broadcasting what could be a one-to-one conversation. But nevertheless, I think that we're so accustomed now to already thinking, oh, Wilk said this, I've got to leave a comment, I've got to like it, I've got to post about it, rather than, hey, what if we just actually paused for a minute, listened? I learned that he's not just this one-dimensional caricature, and it turns out there's something deeper there. And so when we're forced to do that, I think really good things can happen. And listen, like you said, there are so many other organizations doing really good bridging work. My sense was, one, I wasn't, my day job is in school choice policy, education reform.
Yeah.
I spend a lot of time and have spent a lot of time for 20 years now in these policy and political debates. So frankly, in my passion project, I didn't want to do that.
Sure.
So with the Come Together Music Project, I view it as being kind of upstream of some of this bridging work, because I think, like, would I love for people to reach some kind of consensus on the Second Amendment? Sure. Or on, immigration, or like pick whatever your issue is.
Sure.
Yeah, I'd love for people to reach consensus. But when you have those meetings, I think that the people who come to those meetings, I think there's a lot of self-selection.
Yeah.
And with music, I think the self-selection is much, much lower, because I think people come and they're like, yeah, whatever, we'll come. I mean, who goes to a concert? Not just Democrats, not just Republicans. People who like that artist go. And you have nothing else but that about them, right? And so my thought was, I think we can do this music thing, kind of, again, rebuild this muscle memory on like how we engage with one another. And then I hope it actually makes some of that bridging work a little bit easier for the people who are doing that deeper, like content rich bridging work.
That is so important, and you and I can remember a time, Shaka, before everything was made political. When music was. I mean, I think there's probably always been a small element of politicization, whatever that word is, to music. I mean, we think back to like Woodstock, right? And it was like this crazy, peaceful protesting kind of thing, and whatever. So there was always an element of people politicizing music, thinking back to the 60s and the 70s and the hippies and the stuff like that. But in our era, in our time, I mean, I remember when I first started going to concerts. I mean, I know one of the first big concerts I ever went to was like Guns N' Roses, Metallica, and Faith No More. I mean, they were on tour together back in the early 90s, right?
Yeah. Epic. And Faith No More. Yeah.
Yeah.
Amazing.
It was one of these things where, I had no idea what their politics were, and I did not care. And I had no idea what the politics of the people in the crowd were.
Right.
And I did not care. There was none of it there. And then later as and I was always like a Guns N' Roses fan, and Poison and Metallica and Def Leppard and all those guys, throughout high school. And then after high school, I really got into country music and stuff like that. There was never in my mind anything political about that. I didn't care what the politics of the particular artists were and everything. It was just something that I felt, because I felt the music and I liked the music and stuff like that. One of the things that has changed, that I don't think has been great for music, and I don't think has been great for society and our communities and stuff like that, is how people have started this thing of, our artists really start to wear their politics on their sleeve. I mean, I think about during the Iraq War and George Bush and some of the stuff that like the Dixie Chicks, who then subsequently, after woke culture kind of took over, changed themselves to the Chicks because they didn't want the Dixie on there, or like Lady Antebellum took off Antebellum and changed themselves to Lady A and stuff like that. I think these artists who have by rights put out some incredible music have done themselves a disservice by interjecting politics into what they do. What do you think? Maybe that's too much to try and dive into when we don't got a lot of time left here. But it's like I think what happens there, and then I'll let you answer this. I think what happens there is they do themselves this disservice, because by hanging that flag or pinning that to their sleeves, what they've now done is they've they've slammed the ears shut of so many people who might otherwise enjoy and take something away from the music that they're putting out there. And I don't think that that's a positive thing for society.
Yeah, I think about it. I think about it maybe a little bit differently, in that I think some artists are for sure doing that, but meaning I think that they really aim to use politics and even like policy debate as a springboard to selling more records or selling more shows, and I think that that's a negative thing. But I guess I give grace. I maybe am apt to give grace for, artists who over time decide that they want to change something a little bit. Like, why is John Mellencamp now John Mellencamp? Why did he decide to go? He was John Cougar Mellencamp.
Yeah, I was going to say, took out the Cougar. Well, originally it was just Cougar, right?
Then it was Cougar. Yeah, it was Cougar. Then it was John Cougar. So I think musicians like all of us are going to hopefully mature. And so in the case of like Lady A, I get it. If they kind of came to a point where they went, that just doesn't actually reflect what we want to reflect anymore, I'd sort of go like, okay, that's cool. That's your thing. And in some ways, because I didn't see them putting it out there so much and like going, hey, and if you liked all of our old CDs, you gotta burn them or throw them out or something. To me, it was just kind of like, hey, we've had this change. This is how we're going to be known. By the way, it actually caused them some headache because there was another artist named Lady A.
Oh, was that right?
Yeah, that they had to then wrangle over the rights to. But here's where I really think the trouble is. I actually think the trouble is that now things have gotten so politicized and partisan that your parties try to co-opt artists.
Yeah.
And in a way that, for the most part, like I said, I'm in Nashville, so there's just musicians everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
The musicians, by and large, do not care about what is happening. I mean, they care as people, right? They care as human. What's happening to real people? Like, there's wars happening and people dying. Like, that's a tragic thing. They care about that. The musicians are not like trying to get in the middle of congressional debates. They're not, by and large, trying to insert themselves. They're trying to figure out how do you make a living, playing
doing
saxophone,
what we love, yeah,
right. But I think that a lot of politicians end up trying to latch on to their celebrity, and and it gets really sideways.
Mm-hmm.
And then all of a sudden, to your point, it's like, and I know I won't share the names, but I will say I know of artists. Well, I know of artists who have been uninvited to things like to various events and prayer breakfasts because it's assumed that the people who support them must mean that they're affiliated with one party or not. And it's like, boy, guys, I really think we're missing the point on all that.
I do too. And I want to go back to something that you had said before I kind of went off or took us down that line of thinking. But you said, it would be great to get back to, and I'm not sure how you said it now, but you said it's upstream of politics.
Yeah.
In the sense that the that the music can bring us together in this is the way that I heard it, and you can tell me if I heard it right, but if our music is upstream of that, and then the politics just stays downstream of it, we should all be able to rise above what divides us and focus on music as what brings us together. That's kind of the way that I heard it. Is that the way that you?
Yeah, I think so.
You meant it?
It largely is, and I think that the music It's not even that we have to agree that we like the same music. It's that we can sort of agree that you as a person, the music is allowing you to reveal some of the same things that resonate with me.
Yes.
Right. So
Yes.
we talked before we started recording, we were talking a little bit about our kids.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I suspect that if, we were talking about our kids, we were talking about our wives. I suspect that if I said, hey, Wilk, write a song about your family, I bet that would be pretty intimidating. Right. If I had to do that, if you asked me, I would go, ooh, that's kind of intimidating. I'd be sure that I would not write the perfect song. Mm-hmm. But if you said, hey, what's a song that expresses how you feel about your family? Okay, that I can do, right?
Sure.
That I can do much more. And if you do the same thing, when I hear you talking about that, I go, oh, I have some of those same feelings about my family. Turns out that Wilk, this guy who does not look anything like me, this guy who lives in a totally different part of the country, we've had really different life experiences. Actually, we just found some commonality. How about that? And we found it. And I just don't think that we're going to get that way if we walk in and the first thing we say is like, here's the color that I vote.
Yeah.
I think it's much easier if we kind of come in through a side door and then, again, it takes time. We got to be patient, but I think the music helps with that.
I think it absolutely does. And that is such a good point. And that's exactly what I was thinking when you said it the first time. I was just we've covered a lot of ground, and I was trying to get back to where it was, and I'm like, there was a point there, and that's exactly the point that I wanted you to get to, Shaka, because you're absolutely right. If we walk in the front door and immediately try to say, okay, this person's that, and I am this, and there's this big gap in between us, it's going to be a lot tougher than to say, let's go in this side door. Let's start with something that we know we're going to find some points of commonality on, and then we work from there.
Yep.
We work from our points of commonality instead of work from all of our great points of difference, and how those have developed this great chasm in between who we are as individuals. Shaka, this has been an incredible conversation. We had a lot of things to cover, and we didn't get to most of them, but we got to the important stuff, and it's been fantastic. So the website, again, tell everybody where they can find you so they can find out more about the Come Together Music Project.
Thanks. Well, yeah, you can find us at cometogethermusic.org, ORG. And from there, you can listen to the podcast audio versions or on Spotify, on Apple Music. You can find the video on YouTube and whatnot. And then I do some writing at Shaka's Substack as well, and write about both the music and just other, issues as they come up.
Very cool. Well, we'll make sure that all the ways to connect to you are in the show notes for this episode. Shaka Mitchell, it's been a great pleasure, and I look forward to many more conversations in the future. Thank you so much, my friend.
Absolutely. Thanks, Wilk.
Friends, I want to thank you so much for tuning in. And if there's anything in this episode that provided exceptional value to you, please make sure to hit that share button. If you haven't done so already, please be sure to subscribe to get the D-Rate the Hate podcast sent to your email inbox every week. We really are better together, so please take a moment to visit braverangels.org and consider joining the movement towards civic renewal and bridging our political divides. This is Wilk wrapping up for the week, saying get out there, be kind to one another, be grateful for everything you've got, and remember, it's up to you to make every day the day that you want it to be. With that, my friends, I'm going to back on out of here, and we will catch you next week. Take care.